Hi, I'm Jacopo Crivelli Visconti.
Hi, I'm Heike Munder.
The Back to the Future section is one of the most traditional sections in the fair and is one that aims at rediscovering and presenting in new ways artists who were seminal and relevant in the years when they were producing their work, works that were not often immediately recognized by the large audience as significant, but that we can look at today as key to understanding the way the artistic production evolved in the last decades and to understand the way the world functions nowadays.
We present artists from the 40s to the 90s who explored different ways of communication. Some used language as a medium, others worked with early forms of media or experimented with how humans and machines interacted.
You'll see experimental drawings, video works, performance documents, and installations that challenge how meaning is produced, shared, and felt. Many of these artists were ahead of their time, often critically humorous and visionary responses to the world around them.
The Slovenian collective Irvin, founded in 1983, explores how ideology and power operate through symbols and visual codes. Using what they call the retro principle, they appropriate imagery from totalitarian regimes and art history to critically reflect on how we construct and remember history. As part of the NSK movement, they reject individual authorship and instead emphasize collective identity.
Renato Spagnoli is a very unique artist, I would say, in the sense that most of his practice was revolving around a symbol or a sign, which is the letter A. The letter A in his works becomes something that goes beyond the writing itself, and it becomes a symbol or a sign that sort of detaches itself from the letter to transform it in all the ways that artistic practice can allow an artist to do.
Francesca Temerson was a visionary Polish-British artist whose graphic drawings feel surprisingly contemporary. With a single flowing line, she created image that anticipated digital icons and visual systems. Her unposted letters, made during World War II, express longing and loss without words. At Artissima 25, we present her as a pioneer of drawing as a form of communication and thought.
Manuel Messias dos Santos was a very fascinating artist from Brazil. Curiously, he started to work just with printmaking. He's one of the very few artists in Brazil who did that. And in his printmakers, we see a lot of violence and a lot of difficulties, struggles, which are, of course, related to his own biography and to the political and social period that Brazil was living at the time. His work speaks nowadays of a very fascinating way of intermingling life and artistic production.
John Giorno was a pioneer of intermedia art who fused poetry, technology, and performance. His iconic project Dial A poem from 1968 distributed poetry by telephone long before the digital age. Giorno's art is poetic, political, and spiritual, deeply rooted in the avant-garde of the 60s. His work reminds us that communication is never neutral, but a space for artistic and social intervention.
Graciela Sacco experimented with several different photosensitive processes in her practice. The work that we show in Back to the Future this year is Bocanada. The open mouth can be read in very different ways, from hunger to pain to pleasure to laughter. And this openness of the work is something that is very typical of Graciela Sacco's practice and makes actually this work one of her most iconic pieces.
Greta Sarfati is a pioneer of feminist art who began using her own body in the 70s to challenge dominant images of femininity. Working under Brazil's military dictatorship, she created performative photoseries and explored identity and resistance. Her visual language mixes pop art, media critique, and feminist self-staging, a key voice in rethinking how images communicate, especially when they are shaped by power.
Antoni Muntadas was born in Barcelona, but moved quite young to New York where he still resides. Muntadas is very often a person who looks at the social, political, economical context of a country as an outsider. He deals with the meaning and implication of all kinds of communication and advertising, which often bears propaganda. And so his work is very naturally drawn to the street.
Erich Schmidt is a German artist who emerged in the 90s with a practice that mixes subculture, media critique, and self-staging. In post-socialist Berlin, he created after egos like Pilli to explore identity, sexuality, and social roles. His videos and drawings use slogans and graffiti as tools of disruption. At Artissima 2025, we show how his work questions how identity is shaped through language and images, especially in a transforming social landscape.
Marcelo Benitez was an extraordinary artist and a central figure in the history of gay militancy in Argentina. In this edition of Back to the Future, we're presenting works that have never been seen before, or very, very rarely. Drawings which are very intimate and private and show from one point of view his openly sexual orientation and the way he would deal with that, but also seem to portray a humanity on the verge of decomposition, occupying metaphysical empty spaces or even classic, cold, and often menacing architecture.
Miguel Angel Cárdenas was a Colombian-born pioneer of video art in the Netherlands. Since the 70s, he explored warmth and sensuality as forms of communication. His works mix humor, eroticism, and performance to challenge the cold rationality of Western society. Cárdenas turned media art into a playful, emotional experience. His practice shows how communication can be poetic, political, and deeply human.
We look forward to seeing you at the fair. Come and discover how the past can open new futures.